Today, there is no reason to look at this roster like some casual observer. The 49ers window is still alive, and every detail in Santa Clara comes with a serious question. Who protects Brock Purdy? Who adds explosion to the offense? Who helps preserve Christian McCaffrey? And who closes the cracks on defense? Enrique Cruz arrived in the 5th round with the frame of a late-round gamble and the athletic tools of an earlier pick. Zhaun Stribling is already being pushed into a conversation that could silence everyone calling him a reach. And on the veteran market, 2 names are starting to heat up the imagination. Subscribe right now because today we are talking contender football. And I'll say this without hesitation. When a team like the San Francisco 49ers finds an offensive tackle over 300 pounds running a 4.94 in the 40-yard dash in the 5th round, you do not treat that like a random note. You stop. You look again. You ask why a body that big moves like that. Because that kind of physical profile usually does not sit around late in the draft waiting for someone to take the chance. Enrique Cruz out of Kansas became that exact name. And this was not just fans trying to find something positive after a draft that split opinions. ESPN's Field Yates named Cruz one of his favorite 5th-round picks, pointing out that the 49ers attacked the offensive line on Saturday, first with Carver Willis in the 4th round, and then with Cruz. The part that really matters is versatility. For San Francisco, that is huge. This offense lives on movement, angles, adjustments, and intelligence up front. A lineman who can grow into more than one role has real value in Kyle Shanahan's system. Now let's be honest, like a serious fan base should be. We cannot pretend everything is perfect just because the athletic number looks exciting. If Cruz was still there in the 5th round, something on tape, in his technique, his consistency, or his projection, made other teams hesitate. That does not ruin the pick. That explains the pick. The 5th round is not where you usually find finished products. It is where you search for flaws you can live with and upside worth developing. And the 49ers chose upside. To me, that deserves respect. San Francisco could have taken the safer path, grabbed a limited role player, someone who helps on special teams and maybe gives you a few snaps. Instead, the franchise looked at a critical area, Brock Purdy's protection, and bet on a rare body to develop. That is roster vision. That is admitting the offensive line needs new blood without asking the kid to save the season in September. Trent Williams being there makes the story even better. Not because Cruz is going to become Trent. Nobody serious puts that kind of pressure on a 5th-round pick. But learning around one of the greatest tackles of this generation, watching his preparation, seeing how he wins with leverage, hands, patience, and recognition, that can speed up the growth of an athlete who already has natural tools. So the debate is simple. Would you rather have a late pick with low risk and low upside, or a project who may become nothing, but if he hits, changes the offensive line conversation? At that point in the draft, I'm taking the second option. Contenders need cheap value too. You cannot pay veterans at every spot. You cannot depend on the same names forever. Eventually, 5th-round picks need to become real depth, maybe even future starters. So yes, Enrique Cruz is a bet, but it is a bet with logic, size, speed, and fit. And when a team under Super Bowl pressure finds that kind of upside on draft Saturday, the fan base does not need to apologize for getting excited. We need to watch closely because maybe this is one of those names that starts small and becomes a real conversation in Santa Clara. Now the noise changes. With Cruz, the conversation is patience, development, and rare tools. With Zhaun Stribling, there is already a spark because the number 33 pick does not enter Santa Clara quietly. He walks in with people pointing fingers, saying it was too early, calling it a reach before he even puts on a helmet in real practice. And that is where a lot of analysis gets lazy. You can debate draft value. You can say another player was ranked higher. You can question whether the 49ers should have attacked another position. But acting like Stribling does not have a real path to changing this offense ignores exactly what San Francisco needed. Speed that scares defenses. Bleacher Report's Mo Moton put Stribling among 8 rookies with potential to push for Pro Bowl or All-Pro honors in 2026. That is bold, and nobody is saying it will be easy. The 49ers offense has George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, hopes for a big jump from Ricky Pearsall, and veterans like Mike Evans and Christian Kirk. Snaps will not fall from the sky. Targets will not be given as a favor. In a room full of names, the rookie has to take his role. But look at the opening. Kittle, Evans, and McCaffrey are reliable. No defense treats them casually. But pure vertical explosion is not exactly the main identity of that group at this stage. Kirk arrives as an experienced piece, not necessarily a long-term field stretcher every week. And Pearsall, as talented as he is, has missed 14 games over the last 2 seasons, with 2025 marked by injuries. So when Moten says Stribling could earn more chances as the season goes on, that comes from need. And remember this number: more than 14 yards per catch in each of his last 3 college seasons, across Oklahoma State and Ole Miss. That tells you what he brings: big plays, chunk gains, field stretching ability. And in Shanahan's offense, speed is not just about deep balls. Speed changes the fear level of the defense. It opens space underneath for McCaffrey. It holds safeties deep. It gives Kittle more room in the middle. It makes corners think twice before jumping short routes. This is the point I'll defend. The 49ers did not draft Stribling to win April arguments. They drafted him because in January, against good defenses, predictable offense dies. You need someone who changes coverage angles, someone who turns play action into a 40-yard threat, someone who makes the stadium hold its breath when Purdy lets it fly. Could it take time? Of course. Shanahan asks a lot from receivers: blocking, reads, timing, route detail, and adjustments against coverage. A rookie who does not learn that has to wait. But if Stribling absorbs it quickly, the reach conversation can turn into silence. Everybody loves laughing at a pick on draft day, but not everyone comes back to admit when the fit starts making sense. To me, Stribling is a bet with pride and danger. Pride, because it shows the franchise trying to make the offense lighter, faster, and less dependent on the same veterans. Danger, because a high pick demands answers quickly. Maybe that pressure is exactly why this name matters. If he becomes a real rookie piece, opposing defenses get one more problem. And when the 49ers stack problems on the other side, this offense starts feeling dangerous again. Now, when the conversation moves from the draft to the veteran market, it gets heavier. This is not about 3 years from now. This is about January. This is about protecting the best offensive player on the roster without taking away what makes him special. Joe Mixon was released by the Houston Texans after missing the entire 2025 season with a foot injury, and his name naturally starts showing up in fit conversations for teams still thinking big. For the 49ers, the question is not whether Mixon would come in and take Christian McCaffrey's offense. That is not happening. McCaffrey is the emotional and tactical engine of this team. He runs, catches, pulls defenders, changes formations, and forces defenses to reveal themselves before the snap. But because he is all of that, San Francisco has to be smart. You cannot treat a player like that as if his body has no limit. The NFL season takes a toll. Hits in September show up in December. A simple second-quarter carry becomes accumulated wear later in the year. And a Super Bowl team has to think coldly, even when the heart wants CMC on every snap. If the goal is to have McCaffrey fresh when the season tightens, then a physical, experienced, affordable back becomes an idea worth watching. That is where Mixon enters the imagination. When healthy, he brings power between the tackles, patience behind blocks, short area vision, and the kind of running that helps close ugly games. He would not need to be a star in San Francisco. That may be the appeal. Come in, absorb hits, punish tired fronts, and give Shanahan a piece that lets McCaffrey move into the slot, go in motion, and attack linebackers without every inside run depending on him. But nobody can ignore the medical side. A full year out with a foot injury changes everything. Before dreaming about a 1-2 punch, there are exams, workouts, burst, trust, and cost. If the body does not respond, the debate ends. If the price goes up, same thing. The 49ers cannot buy the name from the past. They have to buy the role for the present. But if the market gets cold, if Mixon accepts a smaller role, and if the doctors like what they see, I completely understand why John Lynch would pick up the phone. Contenders do not wait for problems to appear before searching for answers. Contenders look at wear and tear before it becomes an emergency. And I want to hear the fan base on this. Would you use a roster spot on Joe Mixon to preserve McCaffrey? Or does the injury risk make it too dangerous for Santa Clara right now? This decision splits the head and the heart. The head remembers the injury. The heart imagines McCaffrey loose in space and Mixon pounding the middle in the fourth quarter. For a team that needs to reach the finish line intact, that image has power. Now, on defense, there is another possibility that may not have the same offensive flash, but speaks directly to the soul of this team. Kenny Moore II, the veteran cornerback from the Indianapolis Colts, has entered the speculation radar because the Colts and Moore agreed to seek a trade, with him heading into the final year of his contract. And when a defender like that becomes available, I do not want to hear 49ers fans acting like slot coverage is some tiny detail. Because today's NFL attacks inside. Quarterbacks get the ball out fast. Coordinators isolate receivers in space. Tight ends cross the middle. A slot receiver gets 2 yards of separation, and suddenly 3rd and 6 becomes a first down. A defense can have big names outside and a strong pass rush, but if the middle of the coverage is weak, the offense finds oxygen. San Francisco has interesting pieces there. Diamador Lenore, Renardo Green, Upton Stout, Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones. There is youth, talent, and competition. But Moore brings something different: experience, recognition, instincts, and communication. Since 2017, he has played 132 games, started 111, grabbed 21 interceptions, and defended 68 passes. That is not an empty resume. That is a defender who has seen formations, motion, and traps before the snap. And in 2025, he still made an impact, with 6 passes defended, 1 interception, and 2 forced fumbles. We are not talking about a kid trying to survive. We are talking about a 30-year-old slot specialist who could walk into a defense that wants to bring back that nasty feeling for opposing offenses. Nothing comes easy. The fit is easy to imagine. Moore would help against quick passing games. He would bring more security in nickel packages. He could take pressure off younger players and add a veteran voice to a secondary that will be tested all year. And there is more. When coverage holds for an extra half second, the pass rush comes alive. Sometimes the difference between a sack and a completion is the corner who does not lose inside in the first 2 steps. But this is where desire meets reality. Moore carries a heavy salary for 2026. He is at the end of his deal, and if the Colts ask for too much, San Francisco cannot enter an emotional bidding war. The 49ers need to be aggressive, but smart aggressive. A high pick? I do not like it. An expensive package? Same answer. But if the price drops, if Indianapolis realizes the market may not deliver a fortune for a 30-year-old corner in a contract year, John Lynch has to at least check the temperature. Because this is the kind of move that fits a title window. It is not a long marriage. It is not a 5-year promise. It is a surgical addition for a defense that wants to control games again. I understand people who would rather save capital, let the young guys grow, and avoid too much movement. But the NFC is not going to wait for San Francisco to calmly figure everything out. Good offenses will attack the smallest doubt. So Kenny Moore II does not need to be sold as the perfect answer. He needs to be viewed as a serious question. How much is it worth for the 49ers to turn a good area into a more reliable one? If the price is high, the conversation is over. If the price drops, everything changes. Because in a contender season, tight slot coverage can be the invisible play that keeps a campaign alive. At the end of the day, this is the message. The 49ers are not looking for decoration. They are looking for margin. Enrique Cruz is the attempt to turn rare tools into future protection. Stribling is the explosive answer for anyone who thinks this offense can age without changing speeds. Mixon is the dangerous idea, dependent on health and price, but tied directly to preserving McCaffrey. Kenny Moore II is the veteran who could help this defense breathe better in the details. Santa Clara is being watched because contenders do not live on rest. They live on adjustment. So subscribe, hit the like button, and stay right here, because the Niners season has already started behind the scenes.